Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We're recording live at Italian Tech Week for those watching from home. My name is Ines Macula. This is Made It. And today I sit down with Gianni Cuozzo, founder of Exane. Exane is one of the fastest growing deep tech startups in Europe, growing at 450% year on year. And what Exane does in simple terms, and then we'll get into deeper terms with Gianni, is that it protects the invisible software of all of our devices connected to the internet. So from phones to AC units, aerospace, infrastructures. They are already protecting over 1.5 billion devices worldwide. They have 4 offices. They're based in Rome, but they have 4 offices they have US, Italy, Germany, and Taiwan, and have raised over 4 rounds, 93 million euros. So it's some of the biggest funds in the US and in Europe, maybe more Europe. Part tech, part Europe. Part tech, Boulderton, United Ventures, 33N, Supernova Invest. So I'm super excited to have you here, Johnny. Thank you for
Thank you for having me here.
So as we always do on Made It, we like to start from the beginning. And actually, you have such an interesting backstory because you are Italian, but you were born in Germany. From immigrant parents, Italians that left Italy for Germany, imagine for work opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit more about, the context, the background that you come from, what your parents were doing, how was your childhood?
Yeah, so I was born and raised up in Darmstadt. Darmstadt is a city 25 kilometers far from Frankfurt. So, and it was a very small city, so typical industrial city in Germany, very, very gray, I would say. So, and my parents are actually originated from south of Italy, from a place in Italy called the Irpinia. In the 1918 in Irpinia, we had a really huge earthquake, which actually pushed a lot of people to fund jobs to go either in north of Italy or in Germany, in France, and other countries. My family immigrated in Germany. And I come from a very, very simple background. My mom was a maid, so she was working as a cleaning lady, and my father was a waiter. So we are not like the fancy immigration that most of you hears a lot talking about the brain drain of Italy, but we are like a little bit son of the invisible immigration that we had during the 80s, in which very simple people, my family didn't even completed the secondary schools, so no fancy background, not at all. But we just immigrated to Germany for finding a better solution in that sense, and a way to live and an opportunity, basically.
And I love to always find out, because obviously you're a computer nerd, you are a coder, you're an engineer. How did you start that? Because usually it starts from childhood. So if you can tell us the story of maybe how you got your first computer.
Yeah, I mean, the story of my first computer is a little bit of a strange story, because my father was working in a restaurant, and I must say that in Italian restaurants in Germany, they have pretty much the same problem that Italian restaurants have in Italy, which they don't pay every month. They don't pay very often in the sense. So my father has had a really big credit with one of those restaurant owners. At a certain point, this guy said, "Oh, we cannot pay you, and we can give you stuff." And one of the stuff was a computer, and that's why I got my first computer when I was 11 at home. And I did a very complex work to convince my father to don't sell it, because back in the day, maybe for the youngest of you, you don't know, in Italy we had the lira, in Germany we had the Deutschmark, and it was very convenient to bring Deutschmark and convert in the lira, because you can hedge on the currency side. So his initial plan was to take this stuff that this guy gave to him and sell it, and then bring back the Deutschmark in Italian banks and then convert to lira in order to hedging a little bit the currency in that side. But I did my best to convince him to not to do it and to actually keep this computer at home. And this is where pretty much my first step towards computers were begin. And as most of the people in my position, I guess I started with video games and the video games mods. For the younger of you, because now mods are not so popular. Mods were basically modification that you do a video game. So in order to change a little bit the behavior of a system, you need to understand how to operate, and that's why you get the first step in programming world, and you understand that a certain a certain code can be changing the behavior of a system, and it can change the behavior of a software. And that's, I guess, where all started. And it was pretty strange journey in that sense. Yeah.
It's crazy how many tech founders have started from video games, from modifying those games, and it's crazy how this story kind of changed the trajectory of your life to find that you had this passion for computer and for technology. And then how did that sort of like, initial interest transform into more like maybe hacking? I guess
Yeah.
you started doing that because then you got into cybersecurity. So usually that's how cybersecurity people come from, no?
Yeah. So let's say that I was lucky to live in Darmstadt, because Darmstadt, being this industrial gray city, first of all, you don't have much to do. It's not like in Italy. You are pretty much 1 hour and a half drive from the sea, but basically everywhere. When you're in Darmstadt, you are in the middle of Europe, and everything is gray and everything is industrial. But the good thing about Darmstadt is Darmstadt had a TU in Germany, TU are Technische Universität, which is translated to Italian Politecnico, so polytechnic schools, which are basically technical university. And every TU, so every technical university, basically hosts a capital of the CCC. CCC is the Chaos Computer Club, which is a very famous hacker collective, mostly active in Germany, but also it spreads out to north of Europe. And the cool thing about the CCC is that you can actually join even if you are underage or if you are not a student of the TU, because it was basically an open environment in which you go there and you find people that was doing reverse engineering, was doing hacking classes and hacking courses. Back in the day, there was a big topic in the hacking scene in Germany, which was the DRM. DRM is basically the digital right management license for a system, which means that basically, especially big corporations that were selling consumer-grade electronics were blocking non-authorized software through firmware locking. So basically, you had a modification on the device that will not allow you to run homebrew software, and that's was a really big topic back in the day, because the concept was for the hacking scene that we should free the device that you buy, because you need to be you should be free to do with your device that you bought to do whatever you want, also to run software that was not designed to do so. So our job was to reverse engineering those DRM protection, and in order to start what it's famously known as a homebrew movement. The homebrew movement is basically build software at home and run it on consumer-grade electronics. Just to give you an example of this, most of you, I think, you know about gaming consoles. Back in the day, the gaming console was PlayStation 3, Wii, and the Xbox 360. The modification of this firmware that led to piracy was not actually doing for piracy purpose, but it was for freeing up the firmware of those devices in order that you can test and run your own software. Then, of course, things went differently, and the piracy became the big thing on how those technology were used. And in 2016, we were very also, actually 2006, man, I'm getting old, so it's 2006. We were very close on what was happening in Sweden with a Pirate Bay, which was this big website in which people were sharing data. And then it's the time in which the CCC becomes a political party, which is now known as a Piratenpartei, so Pirate Party, that actually was formed during that age.
So you have the good side and the bad side of these, being a hacker. And then you created your first company, very young, which was, we'll go quite quickly on this one, but it was, if I understood correctly, when we talked, it was a company that was basically helping other companies to see what, if they had problems in their security infrastructure, so that you were attacking examples of attacks and to see how, where they had to defend themselves better.
Yeah, exactly. We were doing penetration tests. So basically, penetration test is when somebody pays you to hack their infrastructure. So you are basically allowed to attack their infrastructure, or sometimes not the infrastructure, but the single services. So of course, there is some limits in when you operated this kind of operation. The company was called ASPISEC. And Aspesec was a red teaming company. So red teaming is basically everything that has to do with penetration testing and also other operation that combine physical access and IT access in order to understand the security flow sorry, of an infrastructure or of our service. We scaled the company from 0 to 40 people, and we weren't in a place in which we could not scale the company more because we didn't have the talent pool. Because in consultancy, you basically are a little bit of a broker of talent and skills. So basically, you buy skills and you sell skills of people. But in order to scale the business, you need also to have the talent pool to have to resell it. And this was like when we hit at our breaking point in which we either acquire somebody or somebody should be acquiring us in order to scale the business. And that's why I decided to sell the company in that process.
So you sold the company, made quite a lot of money for a young Italian talent, and you then wanted to do something more. You told me you wanted to create a company that had a lot more scale, that wasn't service, but it was like proper technology.
Yeah. So
how did the intuition for Exane come about? Like, what problem did you see in the market?
So, first of all, I was a very lucky guy because when I sold the company, I was the solo founder. So for me, it was like, a full exit.
Solo founder and bootstrapped, you said.
And bootstrap.
So
So
100% equity.
without VCs, without anything. So for me, it was like, life-changing moments, at least financially wise. But this company was already doing pretty well even before. So honestly, when you, of course, when you don't have super high expectation to, you don't want to buy a private jet or a super yacht. I was already doing a pretty comfortable life, with us. And when you have this kind of approach, you either have two ways of approaching to a situation like Aspesec, which is either you are good in that way, you're just set it up and you're enjoying your life, or you lose the money leverage, which is the thing that actually push you to the situation that pushes to do certain action. And in my case, I lost a little bit of the money, the money situation, the money leverage. So I wanted to create something bigger, and I knew that to build something bigger, you cannot do consultancy or let's say it's very, very hard to build a very big consultancy firm, especially on such specific skill set. And in meantime, Exane was already a thing. We had our first investment with United Ventures in 2018. So while Aspesec was
you had already started.
Yeah. Already started, and we started because basically when we were doing penetration testing, we basically find always the same problem. When we were doing penetration testing on industrial subsystems, IoT systems, and you find that you have a recurrent problems that are always the same. And you start asking yourself why there is this problem, and then we analyze also the trend that we are living, and we were living in back in 2018. The mega trend in IoT was that Linux was becoming a software standardization, which means that back in the day when I started doing this, every IoT manufacturer were building their own operating system, so FreeRTOS, bare metal subsystems. With time, Linux become like this. A standardization layer. So we thought, why we don't build a runtime security agent on Linux that actually takes in consideration the computational limitation of an embedded devices? And we did a very, very complex. We spent a lot of years building this complex technology even before we shipped to the market, because our market is a very stable market. So it really values a lot the fact that when you bring a technology, the technology should be stable already. You cannot go and iterate like you do in other companies.
Yeah, security needs to be.
Yeah.
And so it's actually amazing because United Venture was your first investment, and we have Max Magarini, the partner, in the audience listening to us. And can you, though, explain in very simple terms for the people who have no tech background, what does Exane do? Concrete example on a device that you protect.
Yes. So at Exane, we love to refer ourselves as the guys who are building the immune system of digital life. So It sounds fancy, but it's pretty much the same concept of an immune system. Your immune system, biological immune system, works in order to identify patterns that are not common in our body and to attack this non-pattern in order to stop infection, stop other diseases that you may have. In our concept of Exen was pretty much the same stuff, in which we basically started by the concept that IoT devices are very recursive devices. So they tend to do the same stuff all over again. If you have a smart TV at home, the smart TV most probably will have the same process executed in the same way for the longest life cycle of your system. So we start by the concept on why we don't create technology that can identify this pattern, this recurrent pattern, and apply zero trust policy on whatever is outside of the pattern. So basically, to identify if the process inside the system was doing something that was not expected. So in simple terms, what we do is that we inject software to identify security patterns inside the system. We don't run security outside of the device. Every single device running with Exen runs the logic, the detection logic on the device by itself. And this is pretty complex in that sense, because consider that we run on 1.5 billion devices, and those devices are very, very different between each other. So we go from a very, very small devices like the monitors of your AC system at homes until very complex industrial subsystem, or even more strange stuff. For instance, now we are embedding Exen into humanoid robotics. In our office in Rome, we are collaborating with humanoid robotics company, in which we test how our security agent could work inside every single subsystem of a humanoid robotics, because at the end of the day, a humanoid robotics is basically an IoT device that works. So it's not has the same security layer in that sense. Or another example is cars. We run in the infotainment system of cars, or smart meters, or billboards, or coffee machines, connected coffee machine, connected ovens. Everything that is connected, and it's a very difficult to build a technology that once fit for all. You need to have an engineering abstraction layer, and then you need to have this auto-adaptive technology that understands where it's deployed and auto-deploys by itself by using the resources available. And this is the big difference when you do embedded cybersecurity and cloud cybersecurity, because in cloud cybersecurity, if you need additional hardware resources, you can scale the hypervisor. So you can scale the resources that you can provide to the subsystem. While when you work in IoT devices, you work with steady machines that are finite resources. So you cannot scale if you need additional computational power. So everything should be very, very optimized for running inside the device. For the more techie of you, our version of MCU on Expressive goes under 40 kilobytes with a runtime agent, and which is the lightest runtime security product right now in the market, in the world.
And what's crazy when I was preparing the interviews to think about how many gadgets in our lives are connected to the internet that can be hacked. And obviously that now, like, wars, cyber attacks are getting played into this, in this field. So you were explaining, can you give the example of the AC units? Because you were like, we protect AC units. And I was like, why do we need AC units in protection?
We protect the AC unit on one of the largest, if I guess the largest AC manufacturer in the world. For instance, in a very tall buildings, if the AC units are disabled from a firmware perspective, you cannot restart because you don't have connectivity to those systems. Okay, so imagine you are living in Dubai in this high scraper at last 30, 20 floor, and your C units goes down. You basically are exposed to 24-hour sun, actually 12-hour sun, that actually without a temperature control can hurt the people that are living in. So this is like how a digital attack can cause physical damages. We are the basically the first layer of protection between what's happening in digital world and what will happen in a physical life. Or, for instance, I think you heard a lot about AI data centers, all those stuff, and everybody is talking a lot on securing the data centers and the cloud instance in which you do the training, but those data centers are connected to physical systems. If you hack the physical system of the data center, then the problem, the problematics and the physical damages that you will cause to the data centers way more important and costly than the injection on a cloud instruction by itself. So we are the physical protection layer for those devices.
And when we think of Italy, what's interesting about your story is that Exane is based in Italy, in Rome. But when we think about the cybersecurity market, we think about countries, like Israel, where, cybersecurity is obviously one of their biggest industries. Have you been you've raised from a lot of international investors, your clients are worldwide. Has it been difficult convincing that your technology works as an Italian founder based in Italy? And if yes, what did you have to do to overcome this?
So I think it's important to say something. Italians have the really, really bad attitude to market themselves in a very bad way, because we created this impression that in this country runs on tourism, runs on agriculture, which is not true. For the younger people in the audience, we get from the tourism only 7% of the GDP. And trust me, because you're young and you should study hopefully mostly scientific programs, you don't want to live in a country that has 50% of the GDP coming from tourism, because otherwise you will be working poor forever. So you should avoid any political rhetorics that actually wants you to live in a country that lives out of tourism, lives out of our agriculture, and other things that looks nice on paper, but they are simply not true and will be harmful. So that being said, Israel is by far the most known country in cybersecurity. Honestly speaking, technically speaking, there is a lot of marketing around and very, very few technology coming of Israel. People think about Israel as like the biggest mecca of cybersecurity. Reality-wise is that there is a lot of marketing over there, and they are very good at marketing themselves about, this Mossad stuff, Unit 8200. Honestly, 80% of this is all BS. And the market in Israel that you see on cybersecurity is a factor of multiple layer of connection that they have with the US market. And that's why in Italy, when we started Exane, we thought about this and we said, we are Italians, okay? People come here to buy shoes, to buy good wine, to buy sports car, leather, clothes, because this is how we present ourselves. But then we start to analyze a little bit better the market. First of all, Italy is one of the largest embedded producer in the world. And we should start by thinking about this, because always we try to protect that the others are building stuff and we are just consuming. No, Italy is one of the biggest and largest embedded producer in the world. It's the fifth economy by embedded devices and embedded production. Secondly, we knew that the first market in this space is Taipei, and Shenzhen and South Korea, and all the Asia Pacific. Right now, Asia Pacific is 50% of our revenues, and we know that Israeli companies, they don't have the same network that they have in US, also in Asia. So if we concentrate ourselves to work in the Asian market, we could have better chances to don't be penalized by don't have that kind of network. And then we choose another strategy that most of Israeli companies doesn't use, which is go full open source since day one. So we release everything we built at Exane. We release it also open source. We are part of open source project. We contributing to open source library, open source project, and also we financing technologies that even if we don't use, we think they are important. So we try to finance them, and also to make our team participating to those kind of technologies. And I think this combination of going to different market where Israel was not so big, and also leveraging the fact that Italy is actually a big market in the embedded space and also a credible market has given us the opportunity to scale in that in this sense.
So it's very interesting to hear how open source obviously helped. I heard you in a previous talk that we had a few weeks ago about being a huge factor to your growth. But as a non-tech person, if you put everything open source, which is things that are protecting devices, how are you giving the technology to the hackers? Like, how do you know? Like,
It's
somebody
actually
coming,
yeah.
completely external.
Yeah. I mean, this is the biggest topic in cybersecurity. I think since 30 years now is security by obscurity or security by transparency. Because in other shape or form, it's all this. I will give you just an example. Windows is closed source, and still, we all know the security problems that Windows has. So, in reality, it doesn't change much. What really changed is the fact that when you push open source code, first of all, you do it for transparency. People should know what you actually claim to do, and you should be able to vet yourself not only to the market but also to other technicians that may find you a problem. We have people that fixed some of our problem just because they found it on our source code, and they say, "Look, you have a problem in that sense." And I mean, this is the beauty of the community that you build around an open source project. We do the same for free to other projects that are also open source. And the underlying technology, for me, it's really, really important that should be open source, because technology right now is not only product. Technology is part of our world, is part of our daily life. And I think the fundamental of technology should be always open source. That's why I'm not a huge fan of what technology is becoming in time in which closed source big corporate, American corporate has also taken the world also of the open source project, like Androids, like others, in which Google stepped in and changed the philosophy that Google had in the first place, that Android project had in the first place. So we truly believe that open source was a very big success for us. And on the security wise, we want people to find and vetting our project, because we should be also kept responsible for what we push out of the code. And for us, I think this is one of the things that our customer values a lot. They know what we do.
And has AI had any impact into how you are building or the security?
Yeah. So I think that also on this side, we should a little bit do some myth busting on AI. Everybody's talking about AI big time now. Some of you, I'm sure you tried some vibe coding tools like Lovable, like Cursor and others. Those code generator system and algorithms are basically trained on web pages as a web scraper, because when you go on a web page, you basically download the source code, and then your browser is interpreter and visualize the web page that you are searching in a certain way. And that's why those technology had the opportunity to scrape down the web and train themselves to understand the syntax of programming languages. We do system level programming. So we do something that is a little bit being under the radar and under the hood of a system. We could not use those tools because those tools are not designed for going a little bit on a deeper level, at least for now, simply because there is no open data on how devices are built. So those algorithms cannot be trained. So you can use open source AI for automatize certain stuff. You can use AI for web interfaces. But when it comes to system programming, you should do this manually. And it's still right now a very big artisanal work. It will be not forever like this, but it will take time in order for an AI to really stabilize and send the code on a device for 10 million devices. For instance, in this HVAC manufacturer, we manage 10 million devices. If our system is not 100% stable, we may have warranty recall for 10 million device. And warranty recall for 10 million device means basically bankrupting. So we are a little bit far from system level programming generated by AI.
That's a lot of stress to take on.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you can see by my face,
what has been the most challenging part about building Exane? Because the trajectory seemed to have, you've grown fast, you've raised a ton of money, things have, been going well for you. So some of the tougher moments.
I think, I mean, there's Massimiliano also in the audience. I think honestly, for 4 or 5 years, we shoveled mud every day. Like, it was very, very hard, I must say. Very, 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 very hard. Also because, as you said, it's also a credibility stuff, So in order to being taken seriously by the market, to reach a certain scale, to be appointed in some projects, we work very closely with chipset manufacturers. Chipset manufacturers are the least, let's say, risk-taking kind of company you can work with for obvious reason. In order to be taken seriously by this kind of corporates and that are managing very sensible architecture, your software should be not good. Your software should be perfect. Okay. So when we did Exane, we knew since day one that first of all, this was a lot like a iteration game. You cannot go to a customer, having a feedback, iterate, go back to the customer. That's not how embedded works. And in general, system level programming works. Secondly, it's really, really hard to ship bug-free and super stable software. It's a very, very complex task. And we knew because we were Italian that for us, good was not good enough. We need to be excellent in order to be taken seriously. Because this is like, especially if we build full stack technology like we did, for us, excellency in technology, excellency and the product excellency was a pillar since day one. We basically made a lot of mistakes, I think, on pretty much everything about the company, and then of course we fixed it. We had bad marketing, we had bad sales, we had bad everything, bad CEO, we had bad everything, but we never compromised on technology because this is what, at the end of the day, there is a really nice book which is called Too Good to Be Ignored. You need to be too good to be ignored in order to succeed in that market.
Everything that applies to the regular startups where they say like MVP, launch fast, not in cybersecurity, it doesn't work this way.
Especially in embedded cybersecurity, because for instance, if you do cybersecurity for a server and for whatever reason your security system goes down, you can relaunch the services and the service goes up. When you deploy and forget, which means that you deploy and then you ship those devices to the market, you cannot do this. So you should be 100% sure that your system is stable and it doesn't create the problem to the main functionality of the device. And it's not a simple task.
No, it doesn't look simple at all. And let's talk a little bit about fundraising, because we're Italian Tech Week, but it's part of the DNA of this podcast. You recently raised 70 million euros led by Balderton in a Series C. And in Italy, there's a lot of complaints about, obviously there not being a lot of capital in the VC market and startups having a hard time raising. But last year, I remember on this stage was Doug Leone saying, money follows good ideas. And so I want to know your opinion. Is there not enough capital in Italy, or are there not enough big ideas?
I know the simple answer and the more political answer to this will
not
be
the politically correct answer. I want to know your true opinion, because I think sometimes we hide behind this excuse a little bit.
I think the problem is that the good idea are in the hand of people who cannot sell themselves. And the shitty idea are on people that are very, very good to sell themselves. Capital concentration it's not a capital concentration on stupid ideas is not only an Italian problem; it's an European problem. This is mostly because the capital, the capital of money for VC in Europe is UK, it's London. And in London, you have a bunch of investment bankers, consultants that works in those VCs, and they tend to financing things that they know. Because of course, if you come from Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch or BlackRock or any big banks, the last thing you want is to feel stupid. We have investors in Europe that doesn't like to feel stupid. And the problem with this is that they will tend to invest in things that looks very well on Excel, but they doesn't bring any support value for the European economy. Think about the biggest startup success in Europe right now is Revolut, okay, which is a fantastic and amazing company. I wish I was the founder of Revolut. Honestly speaking, I think I will be not here, but we should think about that Revolut exists as long as AWS systems exist and cloud architecture exists. And none of those cloud architecture in which Revolut is based actually are made in Europe. Lovable exists if Anthropic wants that Lovable exists. As long as we will stupidly financing wrappers and second layer technology, which can be good technology, can be good companies, but they are not tech. We should firstly teach the VC market to understand what's tech, what's not tech, you know? And I think in Italy, one of the biggest problem is that most of the money in tech doesn't really go to tech.
Doesn't go into the infrastructure
To,
of tech.
to the
That's what
to
you're
the
saying.
full stack
To the
technologies, and that's why you have very good companies. You know, people doing payrolls, people doing, you know, stuff.
They're all based on someone else's.
They are all based on somebody else, and they are basically bringing no full technology value. And this is what I think he was right on saying that there is. If you have a really good technology and a really good idea, money will come. But of course, it's hard. It's not.
Doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned building Exane that you can share? Maybe that could be helpful to the audience.
That good is not good enough. No, that's honestly for an Italian. I must say from an Italian founder that do full stack technology, you cannot just be good. You know, their expectation on you, the level of scrutiny that you will have as an Italian founder or as an Italian company is like 3-4 times bigger than your main competitor. So you should not be just good or having a nice marketing. You actually should be perfect. And this is like the hardest stuff. And for years, we thought that, oh, our product is great, but the rest of the company is so-so, but the product is great, it will sell by itself. It doesn't work like this. You can have the best product, the best technology, but if you don't level up the entire company to the same level, you will be not succeeding. And this is the hardest things to do, because I'm a technician myself. I can understand what's perfect in tech, but I don't have experience in marketing. I don't have experience in finance. So you have to also find the right people that can elevate the quality of what is your comfort zone to the rest of the stuff in which you are not so comfortable.
So bringing also excellent people on the team to help where you're lacking those skills. And now we've come to the end of the interview, and we always close it with the same question. How has it's going to be weird to ask in English because I'm used to asking in Italian, but how has your Italian identity helped you in being successful?
I think being Italian for me was the biggest gift of my life. I'm so proud to be Italian. I love Italy since I was born, because for me it's a different, the relationship that I have with this country is a very different for somebody who was born and raised in Italy. When you're born and raised in a lower end immigrant family in Germany, doing like the jobs that the Germans doesn't want to do, you build yourself with this, with this approach that you want to build something for your country and come back to your country and apply, at least try your best, which doesn't mean that you will succeed, but at least you will try your best, And I think we should rediscover what really being Italian means. We go to London and we think about, oh my God, these guys are so advanced. We go to Germany and we think, oh my God, these guys are so advanced. And we really, really don't treat our national identity well. The reality is that in order to succeed also as a country, we should start loving ourselves, which doesn't mean that we should close our eyes to our shortcomings, because there are a lot. And I mean, we all know them. I think we can have a Gigandus podcast only on the shortcomings of Italy. But continuously saying to everybody that this country doesn't work, that the law doesn't work, that the taxes are high, and whining all the time about the things that doesn't work, it doesn't help ourselves, and also it creates a very bad impression to the people who hear us from the outside. So my suggestion is love yourself a little bit more for being Italian, because for my youngest age, being Italian was like the best thing ever happened to me.
I love that we finished on a positive note, because the mission of this podcast is to promote Italian talent, to show a different side of Italy. And as Italians who lived abroad for so many years, we were part of that problem of talking badly, and the reputation that we give ourselves, the way we talk about the country to others doesn't help us. So we need to really focus on the good stories, on stories like yours, which is honestly such an inspiring story to see how far you've come and to see that you're building from Italy. So that's amazing. Thank you, Gianni. Thank you for everyone here joining us live. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Hear.